Aloha, this is Ocean Ramsey, and you're listening to A Shark's Perspective.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. Staying with my own sharky nature, I mean, after all, I've been nicknamed Shark since childhood. I enjoy swimming with sharks fairly frequently, or at least as often as I can. And it's why I have quite a few tattoos of sharks. It's why the show is called A Shark's Perspective. And it's why I hold today's guest in such high regard. She's got millions and millions of followers, and there's a very good reason why. You'll hopefully develop some additional respect for sharks and better understand why they are one of the most misunderstood animals on the planet. While they traditionally are the apex predators in their own world, they aren't the attack dogs we so often see vilified in TV shows and films. And there are a lot of life and business lessons you can learn from sharks. Ocean Ramsey is a marine biologist, shark and marine conservationist, professional freediver, professional scuba instructor, surfer, swimmer, yogi, and professional model. She's also the author of What You Should Know About Sharks, as well as the star of the documentary Saving Jaws. And on this episode, we'll discuss swimming with sharks, in a cage and out, stopping shark finning, education and conservation efforts, fear, Shark Week, Jaws and other shark media, Grandma Great White, Katy Perry and some dancing sharks, some guy named Bob in Kansas, and a lot more. So let's tune in to a shark whisperer with an ocean and sea loving shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. All right, Ocean, I've long been a fan, love the book, love the movie. I'm older than you, and I've been swimming with them. I will say this, I've been swimming with them longer, but you actually know what you're doing. So,
Oh, yeah.
but me, my happy place is in the water. So honestly, a lot of the things that resonated with me, I identified it when I was like 6 years old. I was in the water and I came across a great white shark in the wild, and ever since then, I've been completely drawn to sharks.
Um,
And
it's
I
a,
appreciate what you do on so many levels. And you know this, there haven't been nearly enough people over the years to help promote the good things about sharks and the education. There have been nearly enough people.
over 10 years ago, there weren't too many people besides people like you and I that were actually saying good, positive, educational things about sharks,
Oh
especially
hell,
since.
exactly.
Yeah,
No, I
so
got
I
so
was like,
sad
wow.
watching your movie when you went to China. It's just
Oh
it's
my
so
God.
sad, and it's
That,
worse than
it,
even what you showed. I mean, it's horrible.
oh, it's so much worse. Like we have footage and experiences. Like I grew up kind of seeing some of that when we
Yeah,
would travel in Mexico. And I was just kind of thinking, I'm like, surely we've grown out of this, but there's horrific footage of some of the stuff,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
and I didn't want to like turn it into the Cove, where I can't even watch the Cove. It's just way too graphic, and I. But also at the same time, I'm highly aware that that's been going on for as long as it has, way before that movie came out. But I wanted it to be digestible, and I didn't want it to be.
Yeah, that's
I
a good
think
point.
yeah, with conservation, I really try and take more of the inspirational approach because I want people to feel like there is something worth saving and that they can actually make an impact. Whereas sometimes when people are
Such a great
too
point.
much,
Yeah,
too much just devastation, 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 like people just turn off to it, because it either grosses them out or whatever it is. I think it's important to like highlight those things, but you can't. I don't know. I think I'm personally more attracted to kind of that positive, like, hey, let's do
yeah,
something about like there is a problem, but let's do something about this. We can make a change. We can make an impact. And the cool thing is like I feel like really, especially within like the last 5 years, I'm seeing this massive, massive
massive
shift,
switch. Yeah,
which is like it's so exciting, and yet at the time in the current state with so many species going on like the endangered species list and CITES, different appended uh like different the appendix, yeah, of CITES. I'm not sure if you follow all of that, like
yeah.
with the
No, I
oceanic
do.
white tip. Yeah, so the oceanic white tip, once the most prolific species like on the planet, and now it's one of the rarest. And
Right.
that, for me growing up and getting to go offshore and stuff like that, my dad was a diver and we always had a boat, and getting to see those species, and he's very much just he grew up diving, like, and that's just a normal part of the ocean. It's not a big deal. he was diving long before the movie Jaws came out. And then
Yeah.
my mother's very outdoorsy, very in tune with nature, very respectful, very kind of like traditional, um, in the mindset of more like Native American and Hawaiian,
Mm-hmm.
where everything kind of has a spirit and you need to respect it. And so growing up with them, I think that kind of helped a lot to just be like, hey, sharks are just a part of nature, just like dolphins, just like whales. And they truly are. And I didn't realize that most of the public doesn't really perceive them that way. And so I think I just continually casually started talking about that as I was taking divers out, because I got my dive instructor as soon as I could, and pursued marine biology and took different research contracts and dive contracts around the world. And for me, like, getting to spend so much time with them is, as you know, because you've been diving with them for such a long time, it's incredible. And then trying to explain that to people, they don't really believe you
No.
until they go diving. And I wish we could take more people diving.
We've been talking about this a lot as I want to start taking people on dives of some sort. Not necessarily dives, could be a cage, but I'm not a big cage fanatic. I'm more of a snorkel like you or a dive if I can. But for a lot of people, they're not going to be able to really handle that fear. I'm just trying to help people break through. And that's my passion for it. If I can educate them, if I can make them better leaders or whatever in the world, and also help dispel a lot of dumb rumors, that's what I'm going for. But that's one of the things I think that you really have that draws people in is helping women get over what a lot of the fear and motivation. You're just, I know so many people that just see you as such an amazing inspiration. So,
Oh, you're so sweet. Yeah,
yeah,
no, it's definitely, we all try and take as many approaches as we can to make a difference for the animals. And I think if we just stay focused on them
yep,
and speaking up for them, if enough people do it in their own like different ways and it overlaps and we work and we,
yeah,
network and stuff together, then we're really making that impact. And
yep.
we're seeing that too. So that's awesome that you get to go do dive. You'll have to come out to Hawaii and
I'm
dive with
coming.
us.
Oh, I'm definitely going to. But let's transition a little bit to your book, What You Should Know About Sharks. And in the movie Saving Jaws, I saw you get in a cage in Mexico. I've seen some pictures. You just posted one yesterday I saw on Instagram. But how do you look at when is a good time to be in a cage and when not to?
I think that with white sharks specifically, it's always a good idea to be in a cage out of respect for that specific species capability. The
Yeah,
only reason I'm not inside of a cage is for a specific purpose and reason, and either that's removing a tag, removing rope or fishing line, which I've been grateful to have the opportunity to do that with several sharks, or for setting receivers. So I help the lead scientist down there to actually set and retrieve receivers, or I work as a safety diver. And we've done behavioral fin cameras and things like that that just kind of pop off and there's minimal impact. I'm not a big fan of tagging at all.
exactly.
Um, Invasive tagging is not my thing. I like really, really, it bothers me. Not as much as finning, which is
Right.
why I focus my conservation efforts on finning. But yeah, I'll put fin cameras on and then retrieve them, or I'll cut old tags that are not working, the acoustic ones that turn you off, or other than that, I don't really see any reason to push it because if an accident happens, it's the shark's reputation. And then if you talk about like someone like Grandma Great White, the great white that I was swimming with in Hawaii, I
Hmm.
mean, I can tell from like literally over a decade easily, maybe 2 decades. I'd have to figure out how old I am, but of specifically trying to study shark body language, social hierarchy, watching the way that she's approaching. She had zero interest in us.
Exactly.
Probably the I've probably had more assertive nurse sharks
Oh,
than
yeah.
that
Yeah.
that big beautiful white shark that was swimming up, and she just wanted to brush up on the boat. And we've had that with a number of large female tiger sharks coming up to want to just scratch up on the boat, and for hours and hours, and not a single like threat display from her at all. It really, really amazing. I mean, when a dolphin's rubbing its tail on her
Sure.
face, she's really not in that mood, and she's got a big dead whale nearby, but super respectful of them. And out of respect for them, there are certain times and places that I would never want to specifically dive with a shark. I have done some stuff out of the cage in Australia to test surfboard deterrence, and that was not in great conditions, like
Yeah.
not conditions I would normally advise people to go in. My point and purpose for that was specifically to test these deterrents and to kind of look at the behavior of the white sharks in comparison to other areas of the world to see if are they more assertive or not, and how are they reacting to the presence of a human, which is something that normally you couldn't test. But I have that choice to put myself in that position in limited visibility with juvenile white sharks, which again is not something that I don't want people to mimic what I'm doing, but I
Right, right.
am absolutely going to share the information that I get to help other people to avoid adverse interactions. And my point and purpose with that is if I can help people and sharks to better coexist, essentially educate people on how they can better coexist with sharks, then we'll have fewer fatalities, fewer incidents, and more people would be more in support of conservation because every time there's an accident and everybody blames the shark, even though there's usually some sort of human implication in that.
Exactly. Well, how do you recommend then for people like you and me that love to get in the water, and swim with them? It's one thing, but how do you recommend people learn to understand sharks more when they want to be in the wild, not just from watching, say, your movie Saving Jaws, which is amazing, or reading the books or something like that? That interaction that so many people strive for, that I'd love to do on a weekend trip, is normal to me and you, but for a lot of people, it can be a bad thing. It could be if they make a mistake, but they want to get involved somehow.
Absolutely. Well, that was why I spent over 4 years writing that book to really speed
Yeah.
up people's learning curve because my learning curve when I was younger, I mean, I'm lucky that I wasn't killed, basically. And it's just a testament to the sharks being so patient with people. But because I did learn that, and because I am so much more aware of what was actually going on, and I look back at videos of myself when I was younger, and I'm just like, what? Oh my gosh, I was so unaware. But because I've specifically looked for those patterns, that book is pretty critical. I mean, it's literally life saving, and it even contains the whole worst case scenario. But reading the book, unfortunately, it really is. It's like an ABC, a primary color.
Absolutely, it is.
Um, but it's so much more than any other shark book. I didn't want to like with the editor. He was like, "Do you want to cover, basics on shark biology and sensory systems?" I'm like, "No," because those are the only books that are out there right now. I was like, I want the real life, actual useful information for people. So if you start with the book, and then if you can go with a guide that has the real life experience, because the ocean is so dynamic and diverse, and I talk about that in the book, that it depends on the species, it depends on the situation, it depends on everything down to the water visibility and the current and things like that. But a lot of it takes time. And being situationally aware of a POI, a point of interest,
Yes.
can help, that book can help give you the basic building blocks to keep you safe enough to go through a learning curve. So, like when I train a safety diver, to be able to push off a tiger shark, a sandbar shark, a Galapagos, but more so to be able to see that behavior coming
Hmm.
45 minutes out, the second that they hit the peripheral, and see every single shark in the area consistently and be aware of each one's behavior and social hierarchy. I train with them one on one for a year. And then
Wow.
after a year, I'm like, okay, you're not done. You're just done with me being next to your side. You now have the base kind of structure to continue your learning curve, and the sharks are going to continue to teach you. But if you follow the guidelines that I kind of outline, but I don't outline to a professional level in the book, that's another book,
Right.
just not done right now, then like you can go forward on that. So I would say start with the book, watch videos, go with a guide that's really experienced, but you can
Agreed.
find really experienced guides out there who don't know what's going on.
Well, so I know, and that's very true. If it's somebody doesn't have 100% success rate, it can't be even 99.9. Just move on.
To be honest with you, actually, I find that like unless they're consistently having issues, I
Well, that's a
actually
good point.
I think the ones that are more experienced that have had the issues, in my experience traveling around the world, the guys that were really showy and an accident happened to
Oh yeah.
them and they checked themselves, they're actually the ones that are safer now because they got that learning curve the hard way. And
Sure.
that's something that, like, if you get a novice person or novice guide that hasn't done something enough to like almost lose their, fingers and toes or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
hasn't happened to them, they're not as good. Whereas
Right.
the guys that have been through that, as long as they were intelligent, like intelligence, you learn, right? And you adapt and you change. If you keep making the same mistake, like something happened, like let's say that they got bit or got someone bit, and
Yeah.
they continue to do the same behavior, do not go with that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
Absolutely. I always look for for a 2 or 3 fingered shark instructor. So, but
they might be better as long as they don't have like
true.
on both things. So I mean,
Well,
there's Yeah,
Well,
continue.
I get asked this all the time. But what are your thoughts on movies about sharks, or at least which are the ones? I know what your opinions are of movies like Jaws and how it's driven so much fear in people, and also it just has caused a lot of the shark finning and just ridiculous fear. But what are the ones that you find acceptable? Are there any, or is this the whole genre to you? And I'm almost even looking at Shark Week, because half of their shows are very good as far as instruction, and then the other half are fear shows. And it's really hard. It's been so good to bring up the interest in people with sharks, but at the same time, it's another thing that causes a lot of the fear components.
Yeah, I really feel like the majority of the media, and you must have a different experience with Shark Week because I feel like a lot of theirs is just kind of fear based, but occasionally they will have a good episode
Yeah,
where it's about deploying like an AUV that's going to track a shark and they're filming it.
exactly.
Um, something that's purely actually scientific. That's kind of good, but I think it's very rare at this point. I think BBC, like natural history type
Absolutely.
things,
Yeah.
are a lot better. And that's, I grew up, I didn't watch a lot of TV growing up, but I do remember seeing sharks on like, National Geographic and stuff like that. And it was maybe a little bit of a fear understatement, but just the visuals of just actually filming the natural world, I think is maybe a better way. And I think social media. I think social media is way better than the traditional media because
Really.
you're getting a real life
Yeah, that's true.
situation. It's not a producer trying to get a shot and manipulate it to look some way because he thinks it's going to sell on a network.
Very true.
And I know from talking to those networks, a lot of them really try and cater towards, they call it, it's really rude, I think, for them to say this, but these are their literal words. They're like, anything educational does not apply to Bob in Kansas. So we have to dumb down our programming and sell the same fear based type of things over and over and over again because that's what's been working for them for the last 25 or whatever years. And that's literally what they've told me when I've proposed educational content. And I was like, hey, your audience is getting a lot smarter. We've got social media now. They're
Hmm.
seeing that it's not the same thing. And so I think that I know that they're going to have to adapt, and they're going to have to you know, indulge into these like more complex kind of ideas like shark personalities
Hmm.
and specifics on behavior and things like that. And I know that that's coming because the audience just knows better, and the same thing doesn't sell. But they're also like Shark Week was one thing, and now it's like they're doing mockumentaries like
Right.
Megalodon,
Right.
and it's purely entertainment. And like if you understand sharks enough, it can be very entertaining. But for the majority of the public, they don't understand sharks enough, and they've been sold on this idea of Jaws for so many generations that like those type of fear and false mockumentary type things are really hard for people to distinguish. Okay, well, what is the reality? And that's where I like social media because it does show that
Yeah.
reality.
Well, that's a great point, because I posted a picture of me with a Jaws T-shirt on today, because like every piece of clothing I have has a shark on it, and I talk about how it's a great movie from just an entertainment value, but it's every post I make about sharks, even if I'm talking about the movie Jaws, is that they're beautiful, misunderstood,
Yeah.
everything else, and so that's a great point I really thought of. What inspired you to be a marine biologist,
It was
other than having
actually,
a great name for it?
haha, I know my parents definitely. I actually do like a lot of land sports, and I just wanted to do something that was going to be working, but specifically helping animals. So
Yeah.
originally, I was going to school to be a veterinarian.
Wow.
And so, but you realize once you start to get into that field that the majority of your job is actually just killing animals. And I just kind of felt like with marine bio and ethology, which is animal behavior and psychology, specifics on shark behavior and body language, kind of focusing more on that, it just seemed like everything in my life was toward sort of channeling me towards that. It's obviously something that like is in my blood as far as being interested in it. And I'm from the time that I can remember, I've been fascinated with animal behavior, even just watching the damselfish and how they're
Right.
territorial in comparison to other species and how they interrelate to other species. And I think that interspecies relation is really fascinating for me. And it's such a part of my conservation work, which is more important to me than, really anything. And a lot of people like to focus in on science. And I'm just like, what's the point of studying them at the rate they're being killed if you're not going to try and do something to help save them? So I did do a massive shift where I really want to help focus all my time, energy, and effort really just on that conservation message, getting that across and making a big impact. And there is a place for science for reference, but I feel like a lot of students who are, oh, I want to be a marine biologist, they go
Mm-hmm.
into it with good intentions, a good heart. And then institutionally, they get into the old mindset of, oh, we can just stick it in a box and poke and prod it and electrocute it and, stick these tags on it, all this stuff. And they don't end up actually helping
Agreed.
the animals that they actually cared about in the first place. So I love that there's now programs like conservation biology and environmental science is a bigger thing. And as you can see with COVID and everything that's going on, how important that really is, and to be more respectful of the natural world and other species of animals. And a lot of people, that's a whole nother thing I can't get into because I have to leave right now. But we're just another species of animals. So to put ourselves above another and to treat it a certain way is just not right. And I think that we'll see a big shift in that.
All right. So I asked this of every one of my guests, Ocean. What is your favorite kind of shark?
It's I have to say my political answer, which is the shark that I'm swimming with at the moment. But I do have favorites like specific individuals like Curly Girl or Nikki the Tiger Shark or Bella the Great White, or I would even say Grandma Great White or Bully, my favorite sandbar shark. Or I've got, I have so many favorites. It's hard to say favorites. So
Sure. So, Ocean, I'm going to ask you now the 5 most interesting and important questions that you're going to be asked today. All right, here we go. Number 1. 2 beautiful sharks I've seen you swim with a lot, great white or tiger shark. Which is your favorite, great white or
um,
tiger sharks to swim with?
gosh, that's so hard. Tiger sharks you can interact with more.
Yes.
White sharks you have to be on point. So
Number 2, Katy Perry or Lady Gaga?
Katy Perry, because she was gonna go swim with sharks with me.
And, oh, that's interesting. And she's danced with sharks before. Number 3, Greg Norman or Paul and Shark?
I don't know who that is or what that is.
They are clothing brands that both have
Oh,
sharks on them. That's okay. Number
One
4,
Ocean Designs.
there, even better answer. Number 4, and I am going to buy some clothes from there. Number 4, diving in Hawaii, where you live, beautiful Hawaii, or diving in the Bahamas, somewhere like Tiger Beach.
Hawaii,
Uh,
Hawaii, hands down.
nice. And number 5, the most important question you're being asked today is biscuits or cornbread.
Biscuit.
Good lady. All right, Ocean, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Shark, I loved interviewing you with you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your efforts, everything that you're doing.
God
Thank you
bless you.
so much for having me, Shark. You too.
Thank
Take
you.
care, stay healthy, and hopefully dive with you soon.
You will.
Aloha.
You will. Aloha. So there was my conversation with Ocean Ramsey, a marine biologist, shark and marine conservationist, professional freediver, professional scuba instructor, surfer, swimmer, yogi, and professional model. She's also the author of What You Should Know About Sharks, as well as the star of the documentary Saving Jaws. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversation with her. First, I have such a healthy respect for the way she looks at what we see and hear about sharks in media. Not everything you consume that's incredibly popular, even on Shark Week, is always the best way. That's just as true about many things in business as well, isn't it? A great deal is factually true, but always consider questioning something, even if it's the most popular. She brought up being a little bigger fan of the BBC and Nat Geo shows, and that's understandable considering more of those shows are just filming in the natural world as opposed to adding some mockumentaries and things like that. And what a great lesson on selling through education. She spoke about some producers, and we all know businesses and marketers and people that do the same, where they're taking something and then they put too much production on it, if you will, rather than basically seeing how they are and how they happen in the wild. Basically speaking, more authentic and less staged. So often people take what they think works with very little innovation and then replicate it over and over and over again. And while some things can be fantastic and fun and the most popular, they're very often not the best, especially because they are so popular. Sometimes they, as she said, get dumbed down for some guy named Bob in Kansas, and for a majority of the public, they fear everything about, in this case, sharks, and so often movies and TV shows simply play off of that fear. So, simply follow the path of sharks and continue to be ever curious. But I'm not going to lie, I'm going to watch a lot of Shark Week. Oh, and what about Bob? Second, one of the things I love that she addresses is how she works with people on her shark diving team, and they train with her for minimum a year. and then they keep learning. They just don't automatically have her by their side. Why I love this is that so often in how we learn, especially in business today, is in quick check off fashion through some sort of certificate or program, but not everything can be learned from a deep dive, if you will, on say YouTube or Google, especially as it relates to your customers. I've been swimming many times with sharks, and you have no statistics or apps or videos that will tell you when something will zig when you thought it was going to zag. And when you're around large sharks like great whites or tigers, or extremely aggressive sharks like bulls, you don't have the luxury of being wrong, at least very rarely. And yes, I'm also one of those dummies who's been swimming with them so often when I was younger, I'm shocked nothing happened bad to me either. But I've learned. So take the time to learn from those who have been to the edge and take as deep a dive in your education as you can. As she said, read a book, go with a guide, take the time to learn it as well. Third, I truly believe that, at least for me, find something that feels safe for you. But at least for me, swimming with sharks has all my life helped me become so much more aware. Even with our customers, just being aware of what surrounds us can make us so much better in business and especially in life. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. And until we meet again, aloha, and thank you for being part of my podcast, Ohana. Remember that sharks are worth saving, especially the one you're listening to now. So join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.